So let's take 2, 3 more minutes till everyone joins. And may I please request all of you to write in the chat where you are joining from, your name, and just one keyword about your vision for education tomorrow. That tomorrow could be next year, 5 years down the line, or 10 years down the line. Just one keyword. So your name, the place where you're dialing from, and your vision for education of tomorrow. In the chat, please, till we wait for everybody else to join. Let's see where people are joining from. I'll start with my name.
Did you say one word or one phrase, one sentence, one word?
Let's not make it a huge sentence,
Okay,
but
okay,
I would say few keywords.
okay.
So we have Rajta joining from Indonesia. I am joining from India. Ilani is joining from Johannesburg. Bruno from Bolivia. Dr. Rizwana from Bangladesh. Ismay joining from South Africa. Lynette. And guys, please correct me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Stop me right there and teach me how to say your name properly. So Lynette has joined us from South Africa. Manop from Thailand. And beautiful words coming up: critical, inclusive, quality, accessible, opportunity, wonderful, equitable, universal, nice. That would be a dream come true if every child goes to a school and enjoys learning. Unlock knowledge, equitable access through tech. Precisely to the point where we are, through tech. Thank you.
Right.
Then learning to learn. Yes, Eric, thank you for joining us from Tanzania. Okay, so it's 3 minutes past 12 UTC. I would slowly start setting the stage for our today's discussion, take you through my repeated posts on LinkedIn about filling the pre-workshop survey, which is fantastic because 25 people have filled it, which gave us quite a lot of insight about how to shape today's discussion. And then I would pass on to Hai Hao, who is today our speaker, expert on AI and education. So please keep writing on the chat your name, the place you're joining from, and 1 or 2 keywords about your vision for education of tomorrow. And I will share my screen and start talking a little bit about what we are going to do today in the next 87 minutes. All right. Okay. Please give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Yes, perfect. So once again, a very warm welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend this interactive workshop, which is continuation of our discussion from our first webinar, which was about understanding, discussing the national AI policies from 7 different global South countries. We went from East, Vietnam, all the way to the West to Bolivia. And today, in these 86 minutes from now on, we go from the understanding to action. And we do this to design, to understand and design AI education studies and projects. I would like to be cautious here and say that in this discussion today, we won't have a holistic picture already today, but this would do 2 things. One, it'll create the fundament for a strong critical understanding of the landscape of AI education. We will also talk about the popular narrative, which is currently controlled by just few big companies. And we will also get to know each other, because we will also go into breakout sessions where we will have more time to talk to each other. And that is going to build the fundament to start multi-country partnerships for research, for pilot projects, and so on. So once again, welcome, and let's get started. Note taker, sorry, I'm declining this note taker here. And so let me quickly explain the agenda. There are two objectives of today's workshop. One is that we discuss, talk, and critically challenge each other's view on the priorities and challenges of AI research in the Global South. A question might now pop up in your mind, that why is it needed to discuss the challenges and also the priorities of AI education research? The reason behind is that the first webinar which we had, we discussed AI policies, and we also understood that so many of the Global South countries, they although have AI policies in place, either they are drafting them or they are implementing them. Some are still thinking about how to draft them, but very, very few countries have an AI strategy today. And that AI strategy would actually convert those high aspirations, which we discussed in the last webinar, of being the center of excellence, being the leader of AI in this world. And that's why this objective, to understand the priorities and challenges in research, because research is that component that connects the dots of Global South becoming a development hub, and not just the consumption market of research and innovation and development coming predominantly from the West or from the US, and also a little bit from China. But Hai-Hao will tell us more about on it. So then we will move on with the conversation with our expert, Hai-Hao, today, and go on into breakout rooms for about 30 minutes. After the breakout rooms, we'll come back to the plenary to have a critical thought on whatever we discussed today, and also to answer one critical question of what should we be not copying from all the models of AI education research, which we will discuss, read, and hear today, to form the summary of today's workshop. And moving on further. So this is once again the same slide which talks about our two objectives, and they have repeatedly appeared also in my posts. So before I take you to the next slide, I would just point out to two questions which were in the pre-workshop survey, which were talking about exactly these two objectives. And in the chat, I have posted the link to the survey once again. And thank you all 25 people who have taken the time to fill the survey. And there is also a read-only summary of the response. And now, before I introduce our expert today, let me just say one sentence of gratitude and respect towards his work in AI and education. I met Hai-Hao during my AI governance course with AI Safety Collab, and he is among one of really very few people in this landscape whose words and work directly aligns with what we are also passionate and interested in, education. And his words on LinkedIn, or also what he's writing and talking, they continuously question and challenge what is currently the status quo. Sorry about this once again. And it's really difficult to introduce you in 2 minutes, because your work is really at the intersection of research, at policy and education equity. And it's really a pleasure and an honor to have you today. So before I shoot more questions at you, please tell us a little bit
Thank you.
about.
Thank you. Thank you, Gunjan, so much. Thank you. It's the honor is all mine to to talk with everyone from around the world who kind of, who share our passion, right, for really making a difference in education and using AI as this amazing opportunity, right? Um, oh, there's another note taker. Uh, oh, did you stop sharing the screen?
Wait, shall I
I,
continue sharing mine? And
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. I
okay,
think yeah, that's so we have it all in your presentation. So
perfect,
yeah.
perfect. Okay.
Um, so thank you very much for the kind words. I'll say a little bit about my background, which is quite diverse. So I was born in Shenzhen, China. For those who don't know, it's sometimes called the Silicon Valley of China, and it was kind of the first place in China back in Deng Xiaoping late 70s with the reform and opening up. Shenzhen was designated the original special economic zone. So I was born in Shenzhen, and then we moved to Stamford, Connecticut in the US when I was about 6. And I went to, experience like the public school system in the US there. And then after elementary school, my family moved to Hong Kong, which is where I am now. And I went to a British system international school. So I share this to say, I have probably more than most, a little bit of a, diverse firsthand perspective on various kind of education systems around the world. So after secondary school in Hong Kong, I went to undergrad back in the US at Rice University, which is in Houston, Texas. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if yeah, Gunjan, I wasn't sure if it was just because I was a co-host, but yes, your video and the slides are the same size. So it's good to have the slides in presentation mode, screen showing small. Yeah, I thought that was maybe just me because I'm a co-host, but can you see where
Yes,
the setting for that is?
for because I am sharing my screen and it is visible with my top right icon showing your face and the screen. Is this what you're asking me?
No, in the chat, someone is because the right now the
Mm-hmm.
slides are like very small.
Oh, wait,
Um,
just a minute.
I
This one.
think yeah, Roxana,
Oh,
it's
yes.
presentation mode.
This.
Who can share? Who's gonna start
Is it
doing?
any better now?
No, that's that's even smaller.
No.
Sorry.
Now?
No, I think it's fine. I mean, maybe you are showing in that way, but the screen, I mean, the right side screen is very small.
Is
But I
that
think
is
it's
that
fine. We
Mhm.
can follow your
Is
presentation.
that true for everyone? Because I thought it was just because I'm a co-host and so I see.
Kunja, maybe you need to go to to the view part and see if you can change the way that the screen
In
is
Zoom,
looking.
right?
Yes. So I go to share. I'm really sorry to everyone about this. I am not Zoom fluent yet, and there were some mixed group-ups last time, and it seems I have a lot to learn here. So slide control and show meeting. Who can share? Is it okay if we still proceed? Because the link to this presentation is in the chat.
Oh, try unpin yours. Okay, let me see if
And
no,
I will be also sharing this once again.
no, that doesn't help. I was seeing if yeah, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings, but I've not been the host for that many.
And this particular pop-up, the
Oh, and
co-host is asked,
you can start your video again. Sorry, I just tried to see if like that would make your um
yeah.
yeah,
Is
okay.
it better now, Ruxana? Can you see it?
Yes, I think Gunjan, it's
We,
fine.
we
You
can
can
see it. It's
proceed.
just it
Yeah.
only takes up half the screen, which is fine.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, fine.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Um All right. Yeah, no worries. So I went to undergrad at Rice University, which is in Houston, Texas. And I did a dual degree in material science, and nanoengineering and a BA in math. So I really, my interest kind of really span from the really fundamental, to the applied as well. And I, again, because the theme today, or not just today, but like kind of like, this global South network, right? Like, really global. And um, I took advantage of a lot of opportunities, in my undergrad to do research abroad, including in Japan, France, and Shandong, China. So, not all global South, but again, it's just about, seeing, um, a wide range of, different perspectives on like how different countries, including like funding for research, that kind of thing. Um, all right, so then that's my undergrad, and then if we move on, my graduate school, if you could click,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Perfect.
So after my undergrad, I started a PhD at MIT, also in material science, but my research was on machine learning, and so that's where kind of my uh, research career really started with in AI and machine learning. Even though the application there was, machine learning for materials synthesis, but again, because of my background in math and I was more very interested in the fundamental side of things, I worked with, developing novel, AI, or machine learning architectures, um, specifically on how do we incorporate what we call domain knowledge, that is like explicitly encoding knowledge into these graphs, into these, models, rather than just kind of having to learn by trial and error from massive amounts of data. And I qualified as a PhD candidate in February 2020, which might be a bit PTSD because that's kind of when the whole world shut down. And um, long story short, I not finished the PhD, but I think I definitely gained a lot of research experience, even though I don't have the PhD. And then I also, this was also during COVID, I kind of, had a bit of a career pivot. But it's not completely out of left field because people who know me know that throughout my undergrad and my time at MIT, I was very passionate about education, working as a volunteer, um, mentor and tutor with various nonprofits, and, teaching math and computer literacy, in both in Houston and in Boston. And so, so this was also during COVID. I decided to, really dedicate my career to education. And as a step to, to do that, I applied to and started the Master of Education program in Learning, Design, Innovation, and Technology at Harvard. And I, yeah, and so I talked with professors who work in sort of the neuroscience or cognitive science of learning, right? Things like cognitive development and and how that affects, how we teach kids, for example, at different ages depending on the development. So that's where the kind of neuroscience part comes in. And yeah, and so at the moment, I'll say more about my research in a second, but that's kind of my background, and hopefully that gives an idea of like the diversity of my interests and where I see my work now, like kind of why I sit at the intersection of a lot of
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'll hold on to one or two keywords you used. One is your background and various perspectives which
Hmm.
you were able to observe through your lived experiences,
Yeah.
and then the word architecture. But before
Mm.
we go deeper into those keywords, let
Yeah.
me take everyone to this very cluttered slide. Sorry about this, but this is a very short summary of your responses on the pre-workshop survey, where it's really interesting that there were 11 questions, but it's really these 7 which are important to mention here. And to start with, I would like to point out that the second question, which is about the understanding of AI education research, it has been quite varied. Many people, many respondents have been choosing I don't know or no idea, which is important to understand, and which is important to know that this is the topic on which we should focus. And that's why I was thankful to everybody who took the time to take the survey. And then there have been also responses like it is personalized learning, teacher professional development, and AI literacy. All very important words, all very, very relevant to the topic AI education research, and then innovation and development, and then diffusion of that innovation in the market as AI education tools. So may I ask you, Hai, to please shine some light on what specifically is AI literacy and AI education research, and how is it different from AI research? Thank you. We don't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, I was just Googling this real quick. Just because the text is really tiny now, so like people actually can't see anything, and it's kind of just there's in the uh during the screen share, locate the view. So if you maybe stop the sharing, and then when you click share again, there's like a thing that pops up, right? It says view or view options, and if you uncheck side by side mode, I don't know
Okay.
if you see that.
So I have stopped sharing now, and once again, if I go for
Yeah,
share.
or actually maybe or Zoom desktop app, click the profile picture, then click settings, click the share screen tab. Yeah, let's just try that real quick. And please bear with us. Sorry, guys. Just so
Look,
that
now I am sharing once again with the slide in the center. It won't show you or me anywhere in the screen. It would just show the slide.
that's fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
Yeah, that's exactly how, right?
Good.
it's
Does everyone
working.
see the screen big now? The thumbs up if you,
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
it's working.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay.
Finally,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Thank
so
you.
for thank you, thank
Sorry.
you.
Sorry for this.
Thanks
Yeah.
for bearing
Okay.
with us. All right, no problem. So now hopefully at least people can have a glance through these but yeah, so I I want to say a little bit. I unfortunately didn't join the first workshop, so I hope I'm not, repeating too much. But when we talk about like AI policy, right? A word of keyword that keeps popping up is kind of like AI literacy, right? In the context of AI policy for education, right? In all these various countries. And so I think I wanted to say a little bit about AI literacy and specifically like what it is and some misconceptions,
Mm,
right? So, one misconception I would say that I think people, perhaps policymakers or just the general public might have is that AI literacy is this like completely new thing, right? I mean, AI, really only became on everyone's consciousness, like, we can say ChatGPT probably, right? Or at least that was a really watershed moment. And so I think for a lot of people, like, a lot of these policies, a lot of these frameworks around AI literacy stuff that was really spurred in the last couple years, right, or 2 or 3 years, in many countries. But what I want to say is that if you go to the next slide, this was in um, one of the readings in the two pager. So this is from the new OECD AI literacy framework. I actually know some of the people who are working on this. One of them is my former classmate at Harvard. But if it's all available online, totally free. You can take a look. But one key thing here is that like AI literacy isn't this like brand new thing, right? So if you look here, a lot of the things on here, right? Design thinking, algorithmic thinking under the computer science part, digital literacy, I think probably many of you have been hearing for many years in the world of education, long before AI literacy was became popular, right? And so the point they're trying to make here is that AI literacy is made up of all these components, right? And many of or most of these, I would say, aren't specific to AI, if you think about it. So specifically, things like ethics, right? Why is ethics um, so crucial, right? Well, we understand that these AI models have biases. They can spread misinformation, right? How you use the AI has consequences, right? And similarly with things like digital literacy, right? These are things that educators have been talking about for many years, if not decades. Okay, maybe not, but these things all come into play, right? When we talk about AI literacy. So so I think that's the first point I want to make. And we can and I hope we can talk more about that, right? Like what that means in practice. And if we go to the next slide, so I wanted to, this is also kind of just a conversation starter. Whoa,
Sorry.
let's, oh, oh, sorry, that's clicking the, oh, that takes you to the LinkedIn post. If you click somewhere else on the slide. Okay, yeah, sorry. So yeah, I think we'll make these slides available after, right? So
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
so
Sure.
that, yeah, exactly. So you can like click the link and you can like download the framework. This is something that I learned about only a couple months ago. I was on a short-term course, I guess you could say, at Peking University in China, in Beijing, with some other Harvard students. And this is a framework that one of the professors taught us, or gave a lecture on, called the triple helix theory. So you can see this is not some brand new thing. This is from 2000, the original paper, and it's basically this conceptual model or framework of how government, that's the G, universities or academia, that's the U, and industry collaborate, right? And basically the theory kind of that the argument is like the ideal form of collaboration is where all three kind of work together. But in practice, there's a lot of different variations of this, right? So he sees here like kind of laissez-faire, which is just like the three interact in a sort of, well, let's say fair way. A more statist, and you can think of which countries perhaps come to mind with these kinds of models, where like the government has like a more overarching power or influence, shall we say, right, over both universities and industry, and a sort of balanced view. And then if we next slide.
Yeah.
This kind of is, if you're a computer scientist, or you'll recognize this as the, all the binary permutations. So anyway, so you have like single helix where like there's only one of the three, right? And to explain what this means, for example, if you look at brain drain, right, uh, that's where you have kind of you have students, right, who are, going to school there, but because there's not like government support or industry support, they leave the country, right? So that's to try, I think, explain that. And, government only is like where a government has this like huge, idea for some project, right? But without the buy-in of industry or universities. And yeah, if we look at these other ones, mismatch industry demand, right? That's where like government and universities are kind of collaborating, but mismatch with industry. Scarcity of intellectual support, government and industry are working together, but they don't have the research or the academic, foundations, the intellectual support. And laissez-faire is just the government is hands off, right? So this is kind of a conceptual framework to think about the various modes and degree of collaboration between these three crucial axes. And then the triple helix, which is, the name of the theory, is where all three are integrated. So I wanted to share that. As a sort of conversation starter, to think about how this might apply to your various countries and settings. And let's
Yeah.
talk about.
What you have mentioned here, I'll quickly go back to the previous slide.
Mhm.
I think if there's a way to show this also or pass it on during the breakout session, really help to further our conversation about
Yeah.
what those select countries which have both AI policy and AI strategies, which is two-pager, Canada, US, UK,
Yeah.
China, Singapore,
Yeah.
and then to reflect on which kind of collaboration it is, and then
Right.
link it to the question what we should not be copying. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for
Yeah.
this.
And I'll say one more thing. This is also, he explained in a lecture, right? Like you don't expect like this kind of triple helix three-way collaboration to kind of immediately spontaneously appear, right? So he gave various examples in China of how we progressed from, so for example, maybe an industry, demand for something, right? And then that, depending on the situation, right? They realize they need the academic kind of research environment. And so initially the industry and university, and then finally, like once it was more mature, for example, then the government. And so it's kind of progression as well. Is what this slide is meant to, like how you can progress from, the left-hand side to the right-hand side.
Correct. No, this is really very insightful. Thank you. That brings me to a separate question, but which is still linked to AI education research, because often LLMs are pushed as the educators of tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
Given the hallucination, given their potential currently, which is undeniable, but yes, there are gaps. And given the hype around ChatGPT 5's release, I want to also, ask this question now, that tell us a little bit more about why is there a need to talk about and work upon different AI architecture, which is specifically for education, use cases of education, pedagogically sound, and linked to how people learn in classrooms and how teaching is done.
For sure. And I think I'll start by kind of trying to tie this, well, to what we were talking about previously, right? Where, the relationship between government, industry, and universities, right? So industry, over generalizing slightly, but industry, they focus on applications, and they're focused on, at the end of the day, their profit, right? Their bottom line, their shareholders. And that will certainly skew and bias what kind of research they do and what kind of products, or what directions they pursue, right, in the development and the R&D of models. And so, as Gunjan pointed out, right, like what we've seen, especially since ChatGPT back in like 2020, is this narrow focus on LLMs, right? I think in fact, probably in many people's mind, perhaps some of your minds, like LLMs is basically synonymous with AI, right? And from my perspective, having been doing research in machine learning and AI from years before any of these LLMs came out. In fact, I like to tell people I was working on LLMs before they were before they were large, right? That they were just language models when I started doing my research. But the point is, like, that's why we have this need for like the triple helix, right? Like all the coordination and the collaboration between all three of these components. Because if you leave it just to industry, and we can talk a little bit about this later with like Trump's executive order and stuff, right? If you leave all of this to industry, then as Gunjan said, there are gaps, right? In because it doesn't align with the industry, with sort of market demands, or, frankly, um, you know, the general public, like, doesn't know what is possible, right? So it's impossible for there to be demand for something that they don't know. And that's where I think, in my opinion, like academia comes in, and like basic research. So I'll talk more about that. But to talk a little bit about my work, and so you see in the corner there, Attorney Education, that's the name of my, I call it nonprofit startup / research organization, but depending on who I'm talking to, right, whether I'm trying to get funding, it's different. But if most of you here have an education background, right, you're probably familiar with the two sigma problem, and this is from the seminal work by Bloom in the I think 80s. But basically, this idea that one-on-one tutoring, right, can improve performance by 2 standard deviations, or sigma, and there's more nuance to this. It's been talked endlessly for the past 2-3 decades, 4 decades. But for me, the key is some of these things here in the bottom right. Global talent shortage. We know that everywhere from developed to developing countries, right, there's a shortage of quality teachers, right? Whether due to poor pay or due to just increasing pressures and stuff, right? Like fewer people are choosing to become teachers, which is a huge problem because, as I think we'd all agree, like education is probably one of the foundational pillars of society, because you're literally educating the future members of society, like the people who are going to be no matter what position, right? And of course, education inequity. The name of our network is the Global South Network, and so that's obviously highly relevant here. And how can AI, I think it's crucial to point out, right? Like sometimes there's this like techno optimist perspective, is the term that's sometimes used, of just like technology will, bring prosperity and bring, advancement to everyone. And that's, I think overly optimistic or perhaps naive, right? Or perhaps more nefariously, that's a narrative that these tech companies, these ad companies want to promote, but we'll get more into that, right? But I think we know, like, especially those like working in the global south, the reality of like how much of a gap there is. And I introduced another term. This is a term coined by a professor at MIT, Justin Reich, called the EdTech Matthews effect. So some of you might have heard of the Matthews effect. It comes from a story in the Bible, the book of Matthews, where it's a story about like a poor man and a rich man, and the conclusion is like the rich man gets a lot more richer than the poor man because like just and I think this is something that we're intuitive, we see all around us, right? Like the haves, right? It's easier for them to have even more. And as a result, the gap widens. And so Justin Reich in his book, right, called Failure to Disrupt, uh, he observes this phenomenon, especially prevalent in ed tech, right? Because of inequitable access to, the infrastructure, the technology, and also the knowledge of how to effectively use these technologies. Okay, I've been talking too long. Let's move to the next slide. Oh, yeah. So I won't spend too long on this because it's quite technical, but to give just some idea of kind of the things I'm working on and why I say, intersection of neuroscience and AI. And so the key thing here is this like knowledge graph and like agentic multi-agent system where I'll try to explain it for as wide an audience as possible. But basically, you've probably heard of like AI agents. So here, what we're trying to do is model the knowledge transfer part of learning, and I'm very careful about that. As a as a consider progressive educator, because we know like this is not the banking model of education where education is just about transferring knowledge and facts to the student, right? But it is, you can't deny, it is an important aspect, right? Obviously, there's the social learning and the emotional, the group, right? All of that. But here we're focusing on just the knowledge transfer part. And so the key concept here is like these things called knowledge graphs, right? Which are not a new thing either, right? But even in the world of education. But what's different here is we're trying to use this to model the student's mind. So you might have heard of this term of theory of mind, which is something that like there's tons of debate about at the moment. Like, do LLMs or do AI have theory of mind? I think my answer is no with these current models. But here, this would be kind of an explicit representation of like what the student knows and what the student doesn't know, right? And I think those of you who have been teachers, or actually all of you have been students, right? And hopefully some of you, or at least many of you, have the experience of like the really the best teachers you've had. If you think about it, they really try to understand what you know and what you don't know, right? They really try to empathize with you. And those of you who have taught, right, you've probably had the experience of like you're just not getting through to the student because like you know, um, there's something they don't understand that's necessary to understand this thing you're explaining. So in a nutshell, right, what we're trying to do is see if we can actually let's go to the next slide. I think I this is in my proposal that so this gets a little bit technical, but the key thing here is this last sentence. If you click that schema, or these are things called memory schemas, is a formalized yet sufficiently faithful model of, as I said here, this knowledge transfer aspect of learning, and that this can form the basis of a human-like AI tutor. So I'm looking at the time. Yes. So let's move. Oh, you're clicking. Are you mean to be?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, this was not to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
So yeah. So to kind of bring it back to like the topic of this workshop, right? This is just one example. Obviously, I'm tooting my own horn here, but this is just kind of one example of the kind of what I believe is necessary um, in education is this more diversity in research directions, diversity in ideas, frankly, right? Because as we discussed, right, in this model, like if industry is the sole driver of like AI research and development, they have their incentives are different, right? And may not align with what is best for humanity or society, at least, humanity maybe even, right? Because ultimately they're driven by their bottom line, and they put things out that like um whatever will make the stakeholders or whoever happy, right? Which may not be what is most effective or um what is needed to really push the envelope of AI in education and really realize the potential that it can bring. Um, and so that's kind of I'll leave on that provocation, and I look forward to having conversations in the breakout rooms.
Yeah. Thank you for this one, because while you were presenting, it just came to my mind that often the LinkedIn posts or articles which I see, they include banking and finance as an industry. There is a post about AI. There is little or very, very less number of posts which say important sectors like education. Healthcare is definitely listed. Banking is listed. Finance is listed. But education is an important sector for AI development or AI implementation or consequence. And this is something which we can discuss also later if others see it more often on social media. But in my opinion, it is one of the most essential sectors when we talk about AI. And with this sentence and with this intention, let me quickly walk
And I'll just add on to
Yeah.
that, like as a closing, more or less agree with you. I think that, what I would say is how I would put it is like education is often treated as an afterthought, when in terms of the research and development of these AI models, right? Like you may have seen things like I think it's called study mode. It was first in Claude, and then I think Gemini recently, right, had this like education mode or something like that. And if you actually, I've seen posts about this where like they basically reverse engineer like the system prompt that they gave, and it's like, and that's my point, right? Where it's like it's just an afterthought. Like they have this LLM that you know, the hope is to be like as generous as possible, and I disagree with that philosophically, but and it's just kind of like after the fact, right? Rather than
Let's do the
developing
outcome of
and building
education.
something tailored for education with like education and the student and like how people learn, all of that like at the core of and that's something that I agree, I see very little of.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks
Yeah.
a lot for telling us about AI literacy, AI education research, and also different AI architecture required for specific use cases in education. So now we will open the breakout rooms where we have two requests to all the participants to please spend some time looking at the prompts. You will be shown a Zoom whiteboard, which you can edit. There are some sticky notes on it and some prompts. There are also some links to videos and reading documents. And we have 30 minutes time. And in those 30 minutes, please reflect on two things. One is what defines AI education R&D in your context? Back to our objective, priorities and challenges in AI education research and development in your country. And second, how are these projects, how are these researches currently funded in your country? And some housekeeping rules very quickly. There is also an icebreaker question for you to use it as your introduction. And the question is, what was your first use of AI and how did it connect to your work or study? So that's the icebreaker question. Please use it in the breakout session to talk about your background using this question. And then there are also prompts which are copied also in the whiteboard, which you will see. The link to the whiteboard is in the chat. And may I please ask Hi, how?
Yeah, so we're gonna open 4 breakout rooms, so there'll be between 4 and 5 of you in each one, I believe. And then Gunjan, me, and 2 other Bruno and Esme will kind of hop between rooms to try to, help facilitate the discussion. You know,
Yeah.
share our inputs, if that's valuable, but largely, we want this to be a discussion for everyone here to share your opinions and learn from each other, including, Gunjan and I, right? We want
Yeah,
to.
absolutely.
So we're gonna open 4 breakout rooms. We'll assign them automatically, so it's just you'll be assigned randomly. And Gunjan, should we? I think I'm gonna share the link to the. Is it set so that everyone can view?
Everyone can edit
Oh,
the Zoom whiteboard.
Oh no, sorry, not the whiteboard, the slides, so that they can look at these because they won't be able to see this slide once they're in the breakout room, I believe.
Then
So,
let's we can copy that in the can we
okay.
copy the chat of the
Yeah,
breakout
yeah,
room?
you could do that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
then that way the link is there too. Okay, I'm gonna open the breakout rooms and see you guys there.
See you. Thank you and good luck.
Oh, yeah, that works too. Taking a screenshot of the yeah, what are the share settings for the slides? Because afterwards we're gonna want to. Anyone on the internet can view? Is that? Oh, hold on. I'm gonna change this to viewer.
Okay.
Uh, okay, and then I don't have access now. So okay. All right, I
You
think
can also
that's
keep it to edit, it's fine.
yeah, we can trust people, but just for because we want to we if you're okay, I think we can
Yeah,
share
I'm
these
fine with it.
slides. We can share these slides like more,
Mhm.
like when we share the recording and stuff. Um, but yeah, and then we can just copy the whiteboard link as well. Oh, I think we need to do that in each breakout room. Oh, actually, maybe broadcast.
Should I jump into a random room quickly?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Actually, can you test something, Esme? I'm gonna broadcast the link to the whiteboard and see if
Okay.
like it's like clickable. It might not be, but if you go into one of the breakout rooms and then see like what it looks like, like if it just
Okay.
pops up at the top, or if you can
Yeah.
actually click it. Okay, I'll
Let me go quickly.
yeah, great. And then someone just joined, I think. Okay. Um,
You are in room 4, Isme, right?
she can't hear you anymore. She's in the breakout room. Yeah. Yeah, I think we do need people because like everyone else has their cameras off and okay, I'll go to ooh, I don't know why room 2 has 2 people not joined. They might be like just listening.
Yeah, they are listening. Yeah, yeah.
Actually, they are talking, so that's good. Uh, okay, I'll go to room 2 maybe, and then you go to room 3.
I'll go to room 3. Okay.
Okay, all right. And
And how
we'll
do I take the whiteboard with me?
what do you mean? That's the
David?
whiteboard link, right? Or I think,
Yeah,
well,
it's in the chat here. I'll copy it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, you'll be still be able to see the chat. It's just that
Okay.
messages sent to the chat during a breakout room won't be visible to everyone. It'll only
Okay.
be visible to those in the breakout room.
I'm going to room 3, right?
Okay. And
Uh,
I'll join room 2. Yeah. And well, I think I can still message you as because we're co-hosts, but
okay.
we can try that in a sec. All right. See you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Oh, also. Hello, everyone. Can we, if you're able, can we turn the cameras on if you're able so that we can. Hello, hello, hello. Just make sure. I think people you can see the Bruno took a screenshot of the slides in the it still should still be in the main chat. This is the whiteboard, so hopefully you can all open that. And yes, so let's take a look at the whiteboard. Oh yeah, let's quickly do this icebreaker. I mean, I think I'll skip that since I've been talking for like half an hour already. But if you guys could briefly introduce yourselves and yeah, this icebreaker question. Roxana, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Thank you for this.
Oh, you're very quiet. Sorry. Can you try? Is your microphone?
Can you hear me?
Oh, that's much better. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
So this is Ruxana. I'm from Bangladesh and I work in Plan International. And I work as the regional education advisor in Plan International. So I work with, we in Plan International in the Asia Pacific region, we work with 15 country offices, 15 countries. And so I'm just interested to know, how AI is, shaping, because we work with mostly with the underprivileged children. So how we can actually, how actually we are, providing these the digital device and how we can do that, introduce AI to this group of children. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's where, ultimately how I hope to see my work make the impact, right? Like in these kinds of settings and making, access to this kind of education, this technology available to every child everywhere. So thank you for what you do. Okay, we have Dr. Rizwana Jahan. Are we there? We're muted. Oh, hello.
Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Dr. Rizwana Jahan, and I'm working in Bangladesh. And I'm from Bangladesh and working in Ratta MCHFP Center. And I'm a public health specialist. Basically, we are working with the children with immunization and primary healthcare service. We provide primary healthcare service, including antenatal checkup, postnatal checkup, immunization. And besides this, we providing medical training, and we have a medical institute that is Radha Paramedic Institute. And my interest and our interest, the interest of Radha MCHFC Center or Radha Paramedic Institute, how we can use the AI in our educational institute or paramedic institute, or in case in our medical training. We know that medical training is based on basically practical, and this is patient oriented. It is not sufficient by the AI. But if there is any chance to use the AI in education, and that is my interest.
Yeah, great. That's wonderful. And I think that highlights the intersectionality of this, right? And to your point about obviously, in particular, like the kind of education you're talking about involves a lot of practical training, right? And so that's where my point about how like the knowledge transfer part is only one aspect of education and of learning, right? Granted, I think, what you were what I understand is like, I think AI could help with parts of that training, right? Like as a medical professional, there is just a lot of like knowledge you need to, remember and like understand, in addition to all the practical work. And so perhaps AI could help with, parts of that. And so yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm just an old friend of Gunjan,
Yeah.
and I'm interested in what she does, but I do not participate I think I will leave now and I will come back in half an hour
Oh, that's sure.
because I
Yeah,
will not actively participate.
okay, that's understandable. Yeah, if you want to join back for the plenary, like once we come back from
Yeah,
break.
so I'm going to leave now. Huh?
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for
And
joining.
good luck and
Thank you.
good success in your discussion.
No problem. All right, and then we have Kwame Nyantuwame. Would you like to
Yes.
introduce
Hello,
yourself? Hello.
everyone. My apologies for not showing my video. I'm trying to find like a good space.
No worries, no
So I'm
worries.
actually a friend of Gujan as well.
Hmm.
I mean, just based off what I've just heard. I mean, I'm from Ghana, West Africa. The buzz around, getting AI into education is gathering steam. Because I mean, there's pretty much no choice. We all have to get on it to, in a sense, find ways and means to get the benefits from it. Um, I guess the what I'll just say in my last comment is, so Ghana, for example, and then Africa as a whole is considered a developing continent, right? So a developing country, a developing continent. And so how we view education and, juxtaposing it to these emerging and exciting technologies is in my view should be slightly different. Because you are looking at it in terms of, how do we leverage on these tools in a way that puts us in a position where we are birthing a new generation that is going to, in a sense, be very different from the past, i.e., the fact that we are going to, in a sense, be more capable, more competent, more audacious, more put under the umbrella of being critical thinkers, problem solvers,
Yeah.
all in effect to put us in a position where we are, in a sense, building a continent that we want to see to be competitive across the globe, right? So yes,
Yeah.
that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I think that's absolutely, crucial. And from, that's an area where I wouldn't say I'm very involved in, but a few months ago I gave a talk to a group of, I'm trying to find the post now. I'll send it in the link in a second, but to a group of students from Nigeria, and talking about the role AI plays in research and which is more broadly. And so I think you're absolutely right that like just broadly speaking, this is the major kind of purpose of this network, right, is to include these voices, especially from developing countries and the global south, because otherwise, and I feel strongly about this, right? Otherwise, the direction, the narrative. Oh, I think he disconnected. Is dominated by by the global north and the U.S. and these tech companies. So, okay, so let's see. Let me take a look at the what those slides are. Prompts for focused discussion. What types of, yeah, I'm looking at, do you guys see the slide or the screenshot, right, from in the chat? What types of research are happening in your country? So you're both from Bangladesh, so be curious to hear about, if you have slightly complementary perspectives. How are they being funded? Who are the key national, international actors? Yeah. Okay. Would you guys like to share anything on any of these? And have a second and let me find the thing I'm thinking of. So maybe to be a bit more focused, like, are you aware of like ways in which the Bangladeshi government is directly promoting kind of AI education research and development, either through funding like grants for academia or for startups, that kind of thing. Uh, so a little bit more specific than just like AI in general, right? Because we're here to talk about going beyond just like kind of vague national policies and with all these big words, but like what concretely governments are or can be doing. So are you guys are you aware of there are some examples here, right? Grants, donors, public-private partnerships. Oh, and we have someone else join, Tom Blake. Oh, Tom, it's you, right? Is this Tom from UCL?
Yes, it is. Hello.
Hello,
Sorry.
hello.
Don't know
No
what you're doing.
worries. Oh, we have another one too. Janital night. Oh no. Okay, the something's going on with these. Um, but that's okay. So we're just well we did some self intros. But yeah, Dr. Jahan.
Yeah, we have a national guideline or policy, AI policy, but as far we know, but there is no such type of policy or organized policy in AI for research.
Okay.
They are only in developing, and in some places only there is structure but not implemented yet. Okay. And in case of, as I am a medical person, so I have not much more information about the primary or secondary education. But as far I know, in several schools or primary schools in Bangladesh or secondary schools, there are AI policy and AI structures, infrastructures, but they are not experienced teacher or lab, so that they are not effective yet. And yes, further there are also some facilities in some universities like BUET and engineering universities in other region of Bangladesh. But there are some research yet also, but in minimum, in a small or short.
So sorry about that kind of sudden. Hopefully, some of you at least were or saw the timer going because
Yes,
this is for
yes.
30 minutes. But yeah, what I
Managed.
just realized was my group we weren't actually in a breakout room. We're like the people who didn't join a breakout room, so we formed a breakout room of our own. So, but I think we had some great discussions, and I just restarted the recording. But yeah, let's come back together.
Yes. I have to say 30 minutes is again a lesson. It's too little for 2 questions. And this is a note which I'm taking for our next workshop.
Yeah.
And in our group, I would give the word to Zainab. And guys, if you're all right, I have just one more thing to say. We are left with exactly 15 more minutes for this workshop. But if you're willing, we can continue the discussion because it was really very insightful, touching on very important points. Whoever has to leave, please feel free to do that. I won't go any more back to the slides because it makes no sense now, because I really want to stick to what we were talking about because it was super, super, super interesting. So please, Zainab, you have the word. Go on, tell us.
Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Zainab, and I'm from South Africa. So I was in breakout room 3, and we didn't quite get into the nitty-gritties of actually discussing, directly discussing the prompts. But I think the background conversation actually does inform both questions. So just to make up some context, the makeup of our breakout room was myself from South Africa, with also both dual citizenship, both South Africa and Zambia. So this is Southern Africa, and then we had a Kenyan and an Indonesian. And so, we each shared our different contexts. And what definitely came up was the need for the development of models that are localized, so that are that operate in local languages to ensure improved access, especially for an education sector an education curriculum that is rolled out in a very diverse setting where people speak multiple languages, and where primarily these models tend to operate in in English, for instance, or even other models. So, for instance, in Africa, so there are some parts that are French speaking or Portuguese speaking. So, LLMs do tend to operate in those languages, but these are very small communities in comparison to the greater context. And so there's need for language for it to be able to be used in other languages. But of course, this requires a lot of compute, etc. Very expensive. And then we spoke about, so there was a quite interesting stats that was shared with us in Kenya, where there's quite a high uptick actually of the use of AI and LLMs in Kenya amongst the youth, especially school-going children. So I think it was the number was about 35%, whereas there's actually quite low numbers to indicate for educators. There seems to be whilst there might be some enthusiasm, but there's still very few people who know how to use it, or who are even open to using it within their education, within their teaching practice. And so we spoke about cultural pushbacks and stigmas against the use of technology and especially AI. There's a lot of distrust and mistrust, and how do we combat that? And I think a part of that is also access and language. People often also are able to trust something when it's also operates where they're able to use it within their own languages. So also largely speaking to also, and then another thing that was also mentioned about that has contributed to the high uptake of AI use in Kenya amongst Kenyan youth is low cost data prices, very relatively good high quality infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure within the East African region. Whereas in other parts, for instance, here in Southern Africa, data is quite expensive. So in a very unequal society and where people are largely unemployed, it's very expensive and almost impossible for people to access, for young people to easily access AI models that are not free, etc., that don't require internet access. And then lastly, what is this? Yeah, another thing, another motivator that was showed, that perhaps that needs to be also be considered in terms of R&D, that some people could also perhaps focus on in the research and development, is looking at the relationship between employment opportunities and AI usage. So what can be seen is that even young people tend to gravitate towards the use of AI technology, even as students, if they can be convinced that it will lead to a paid job at the end of it. And so how can that be leveraged, I guess, down the line? Yeah, I think that's it from my group. If there's anything that I've missed out, then please feel free, William, Gunjan, to contribute. Thanks.
Everything. You covered everything. Thank you so much. Is there any question anybody would like to? Yeah, please go ahead. You raised your hand. Who was it? Yeah. Chi Kwan. Am I pronouncing-
Chi
go
Kwan.
ahead.
Please call me CK. Actually, I want to address my question directly to our keynote speaker today. Mr. Liu, because
Hello, hi. Call me Hi Hao.
because looking at I'm Chinese, you are Chinese, I'm from
Yes.
Malaysia, Chinese. And because you have very diverse experience in educations. I mean, from China to America, and
Yeah.
then China, America again, and
Yes.
so we ignore the geopolitical issue. We just focus on AI, LLM that is developed from both country for education purpose. What do you think? How it will help normal global South country in terms of education? Because both country are competition, very tight competition, is like today GPT-5 release, then later
Yeah.
DeepSeek maybe
Yeah.
new version will release. So
Yeah.
how it will, in your perspective, how it will help us global south like Malaysia, Bangladesh, Africa, in terms of improving our educations and reduce the equality gap. That is most
Yes.
important thing.
Absolutely. And I agree completely with that last point, right? And like with reducing equity gap, if you saw in my, when we first joined the meeting, I put my name, where I'm from, and then my word was like education equity through tech, right? Because I really believe in the power of tech as a way to, increase equity, increase prosperity for everyone. But the key point is that doesn't just happen automatically, as some of these kind of tech bros would like to have you believe, oh, use our AI and like everything will be amazing, right? Um, I think I think it's a great question, and I want to tie a little bit to what my group discussed. So we had Dr. Shoot, I'm forgetting your name, Dr. Rizwana Jahan and Roxana Hussain. So they're both from Bangladesh, and one thing that came out is that like sort of for what I gather, like the last workshop was about from what Gunjan told me, that there's all these like kind of big national strategies and policies or policies, I guess, that, I'm sure I know is the case in Malaysia too. And there's often a gap with implement that with the reality. So China is actually a great example of this, despite its size, right? And its, population compared to Bangladesh or Malaysia. There's also this gap that I see like in the reality. So China is very vocal, right, on the world stage, in this AI race, right, with the US, and they're very kind of gung-ho about, oh, look at how much we're doing in AI in education. But the reality is often like you know, that's like an overly optimistic or rosy picture, right? Where, in the rich coastal, more educated cities along the, the coastal parts of China, right? In these big cities, like, yes, maybe in these schools, they have the infrastructure, they have the, students and the teachers have the education and training. But then you go to like the rural parts of China, right? And it's a completely different story. So what I hope to see, to answer your question, is that like, for ignoring any kind of these things about China, right? But like China does, through its kind of government structure, as I understand it, right? Like does, go through these layers and like make these things as best as they can, like in a local context, like in a rural context. And I imagine that some of these challenges with the very different settings where you're trying to make like implement AI into education, or deal with these various, whether it's teacher training or whether it's infrastructure connectivity, right, internet connectivity, in these, because China is just so big, there is such diversity in the geographically and in terms of socioeconomic, connectivity, all of this. If China wants to be sort of, and they do, right, want to be kind of a role model or example on the world stage, especially like AI and education, and they would kind of like share either just what they learn or either like directly like the kinds of tools, China goes everywhere to, invest in infrastructure, right? That's that could be a positive thing, right? Obviously, there, won't get into like the potential, like China's, control over like that kind of thing. But if we look at like the optimistic side, I think we can learn a lot just from China's diversity, right? Um, and as for the US, right, like it's really hard to say just right now, right? Again, like not good at politics books, but like, with the recent policies and, kind of being very like America first and stuff, it's not clear how much of a role, right, the US will play in this, because we've already seen like the US withdrawing loads of like the US aid and just like foreign investment, and so it's hard to say, right? But of course the US, things can change drastically every 4 years, right? But I think it's a great question of like what like the relationship should be between these like large powers and like smaller countries, right? Because it definitely shouldn't be like a dominating or like, right? But there can also be a lot of learning. So that's the optimist in me.
I love the part things can change in the next 4 years, not 3 years.
Yes, let's hope that we
And
can.
let's not forget the fundings which are now cut from university research and development grants. So this is a big step back, especially coming to your three helix model.
Exactly.
University talking to industry and industry talking to the government, and those three working together to make US one of the biggest development hubs in AI, in tools.
Yeah.
And
but it is missing something without that academic part, right? Because and I've seen this firsthand, right? Just like it even affects things outside AI, right? Like kind of my own experience where there's just kind of less funding for more like basic research, more fundamental work, because it's not kind of the ROI is not as immediate, right? Like and I'd love to use the example just very briefly, if you'll indulge me, like like mRNA, right? Like when some of you, hopefully many of you know the story of her name is Katalin Kakoro, but she's from Hungary, and when she was doing her research on mRNA, I think like about 30 years ago, like 80s or 90s, uh, it was ridiculed. People were like, "Oh, this will never have like any, use or application." And then what do you know? Like, 30 years later, saves millions, countless people, right, with the mRNA vaccine. And so that's, and there's countless examples of this, you might not even be able to, that's the, I'm a strong believer in the value of basic research, right? And I've alluded to this with kind of my interest in math and stuff, but where that's, historically, like that's what academia, that's the only place where like that would happen, right? And even now with AI, that's why like there's so much focus on LLMs and not these other things, which again, like that's the nature of research. You don't know what will work, right? You don't know what will work. But companies like for-profit, they need to know what will work because they need to answer to their shareholders or, their board or whoever, right? And so that's why like in some ways, like they're playing very safe, right? Like LLMs, they're like, oh, we kind of know it works. People use it. Like if we just keep making it a little bit better. So that's why you don't get these like, breakthroughs. So yeah. So yeah, somebody will be sure. Thanks. Yeah.
This is true. We also have Danish, you're here. Thanks for joining. Danish is a teacher. Could you please quickly tell us in which group you were and what you guys discussed, if you have time, because I know we are past our scheduled time.
That's all right. Thank you so much for having me, Gunjan. I'm glad that I could make it. I'll be traveling all day long, and I showed up in my travel clothes. I'm really sorry I didn't get the time to change. I was in one of the groups with people from Bolivia, and I had Miss Anamika with me in my group, and we were discussing how a lot was talked about in terms of AI research and development in India back in 2018 when Niti Aayog came into existence, and we heard a lot of promises about setting up research centers down south in Karnataka for mapping problems like malnutrition and crop failure and climate change. They wanted students at this research center to start working to build tools to map all of these problems. But little was said after that. Little was known as to where this research facility even reached in terms of its goals. And cut to 2024, we have another press release from the government claiming that we have a 10,000 crore budget in India for research and development for AI. And this was a very big multifaceted conference that had a lot of people from the different parts of the world on one platform talking about AI and its importance in India's technological ecosystem. And yet we've heard nothing about development in this area because sadly, in countries where your pace and progress is slowed down because of corruption, a lot of money that is set aside for development goes into the pockets of politicians, and they build bungalows and they have investments in foreign countries. They make their bank accounts lush and green with money, and areas which are potential problem solving think labs, think tanks, like Gunjan was talking to me about, they are poorly funded. They keep waiting for funds to reach. They cannot pay stipends to anybody. No researchers are paid, and eventually what these people start doing is either they go to brain drain. These people leave the country. They drop their hopes and they exit. They get a nice visa to France, or to the US, the worst, and or they start working individually to build something that's gonna benefit them, maybe their own business, or develop a tool for their startup. And globally and as a country, nationally, we still remain challenged.
And one thing which I would mention once again here, which we also discussed in the last webinar, this whole shiny conferences and this budget, 10,000 crores, is basically for 10 years. It has been allocated for 10 years of research, development, private sector incentivization, which comes around less than $1 million per year for a country like India, which is peanuts. But one thing which is really good, which has happened during this research of this workshop, India has invested some part of this money into creating capacity for compute and data sets in Indian languages. And that is happening in collaboration with one of the top-notch IT institute, Technology and Engineering Institute, IIT Chennai. And they are building a multilingual foundation model which will understand multiple Indian languages. So this
Which
is one
brings us back to what Ms. Ruxana was saying about getting AI support in your own language, because familiarity, certainly bridges that gap between, illiteracy and knowledge. And we want people, as I also mentioned in the group, that apart from research, the challenges that India is facing currently is AI literacy. Not many people are literate about AI, and sadly, we go to a website, and it's very funny. We go to a website that sells eyewear, and it just claims that use this AI technology to test this glass on your eyes to see if it suits you. That has nothing to do with AI. That is just a camera. There's nothing to do with machine learning or interaction between machine and human, and there's nothing happening here. And yet we are impressed by all of that, and we feel that this brand is really avant-garde and technologically advanced, and we must get glasses from this company. And that's also that's an insight into AI literacy, because we don't really know what AI is apart from ChatGPT in India.
Yeah. So true, so true. And ChatGPT has become synonymous to AI. And what Hai Hao was saying, that he was working before they were large, the language models were large. And then connect the dots to education. Think about it, using LLMs at scale in classrooms in South India or in North India or in, let's say, east of Vietnam or in south of Bolivia, where people don't speak English. And where it's coming with bizarre examples. Sarah is right now not here. She's a teacher trainer and a community builder from Ghana who was here in the last webinar. She said, in my country, teachers have to draw a computer to teach a computer. And AI, large language model, is giving me an example of a pizza to explain a circle in the geometry class. None of my students have eaten a pizza or seen a pizza before. This is irrelevant. This is non-context aligned. And that's why, we will need another workshop to dive exactly into these questions and precisely
these third world problems.
Yes, but there is absolutely no shame in
discussing not at all.
things. Because as you said, Hai, education is the fundament of teaching those leaders, those engineers, those doctors, those lawyers of tomorrow. And 80% of those people who will rule the world or govern the world or manage the world or spoil the world are in the global south, having those opportunities and problems where ambitions are high, but access is unequal. So shall we quickly touch on the last question, which was about critically reflecting what we have discussed so far, and then connecting its dots to what we should not be copying from US or China and other countries are doing that would not fit our context. So anything which you had the chance to discuss about this in the breakout room, now would be the time to say it, please.
We haven't managed to reach to that point specifically. However, from that, what we discussed in the breakout room, it's important to understand the context. So you actually summarized it pretty well when you mentioned the importance of seeing what our context is doing, is happening, is living, to understand how to connect the technology to what we are doing, and not to adapt the context, the realities, the territories that we are in to the technology from the global north. So this is important to see. This is important to understand. There is no shame in that. In understanding our third world problems, as Danish were mentioning. And I think from what we were discussing, that's the most important thing that we need to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep talking about it. And keep talking about it, and really not just get either too carried away or too overwhelmed or too excited by another model drop, another weekend, and another paper, which is A, not always peer reviewed, and B, not written for education AI use cases, especially in the most populated part of the world. So this is really coming from a place of both not knowing enough, because there is so much which I am learning today from you all, and there's so much more to learn, but also continuing this conversation to build understanding, because based on this critical understanding, we will be able to combine our resources, combine our efforts to have an action. And when we start doing our actions, the government, the private sector, the funding partners, they will take a notice. Because in the global south, there is very little of this AI education research, very little focus on education research as such. And once the public and the private sector and the funding partners, institutions start taking notice, that is exactly when we take the ownership and make these AI tools relevant for our context. And then it all, goes and connects the dots to governing the technology, governing AI, which is built here based on our use cases, our context, which really serves our purpose. And then because it's built here, we have an oversight. We are able to govern it. And yes, with this, I would say I have taken notes of things which we would be doing more for the next session, allotting more time and keeping it more tightly aligned with the discussion, because I do have a tendency to get carried away and speak a lot. So please, I would invite you to raise your hand if there is any question, any point which you would like to discuss. And before we close it, once again, thank you very, very much for joining. It was a super interesting and very, very insightful workshop. We will be sharing the summary and a detailed, something like a report kind of thing out of this, but it will take some time. So please, if there is any question, anything which comes to your mind, any thought which you would like to share, please, now is the time. And if not, then thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful evening or a wonderful afternoon or a wonderful morning, depending on wherever you're joining from. It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's stop the recording.
Oh, may I ask everybody to just quickly appear for 1 minute? I would take a group picture.
Yes.
You guys are still
Well, we still have most people here.
Yes. Perfect.
I'll still stop the recording though.
Yes, that could. So if you could please